Right, okay.
My name's James Lawson.
I was director of animation and art direction and head of story.
My name is Alice Gain, I'm the producer. My job roles were producer, rigging and animating rigs as well.
I'm Leah and I was graphic designer, logo designer and assistant animation director.
My name is Rowena Headley.
I was an animator, character designer, gore specialist.
Hi, I'm Harry Mayers.
Oh, well, my job role was head of background design, creating the physical world that the characters of Hell Incorporated live in.
When we first had to think of the ideas for our graduation films, I was really kind of struggling. I knew that I wanted to be in like a leadership role purely because of like how my career path that I wanted to go down. I ended up looking in a lot of my old sketchbooks, trying to find inspiration from any old ideas because I couldn't think of anything new. And I came across drawing of 6 characters that were meant to be these really like evil, like villainous type characters that were led by one very unassuming but clearly the most evil of all of them, who was called Kettleworth, the absolutely fucking evil. And it was that idea of a very unassuming but tyrannical character that sort of spawned the rest of it. And we had a lot of exercises in class about like story wheels, like the spur of the moment. I remember writing it down that it could have been like an interview to become a demon at Hell. And then that turned into Hell Incorporated. The idea just came from there, and it was the first script I ever tried to write seriously. It became kind of an ensemble piece with lots of characters coming in and out. Originally there was about like 5 interviewees and way more things going on, and then we realised it has to be a short film for a university animation, cut it down considerably. At least 2 of the main characters, with Leonard and Olmer, they were both just adaptations from 2 of the characters on that original sketch. Their names were all inspired by various demons that appeared throughout Judeo-Christian mythology. Leonard being a demon. I don't even know what that demon was famous for. I just remember looking on a wiki list of demon names, and that was just really funny that there was one called Leonard. The idea behind the world and the world building, everyone pitched in, and it was good to have people like Harry there who had some resistance to some ideas, because it made me, at least as like the writer, in those situations you really have to try and defend your creative decisions. We had some good debates.
We discussed philosophy of the script at one point. You didn't even intend for it to have a philosophy.
It was my first time writing a script properly and like really trying for it to be something good. So I was a novice with that, and it made me consider a lot of very basic writing principles. What are we trying to say? Even though it is a comedy and it's crude and crass, you don't think that there has to be some sort of message behind it. But we really like went in deep on the modern workforce. What is it to be evil? And so hopefully that's reflected in the characters at the very least. So I mean, I can't take all the credit for the script. We had help from Paul Reynolds. He's like a really good writer. I've been with him on like animation competitions before. And when our script was kind of going a bit stale and I wasn't too sure if I was out of my depth or not by like trying to really tie the story together, Paul was our script editor, and he sort of ended up coming up with the whole Suckleberry flashback scene as they're looking at her CV. Originally there was going to be like no big painting, no epic, bloody gore scene. Paul's idea there, that really like helped just tie that all together. So he was a vital part to that writing process as well.
The canvas is about A2 size. I think it's made with a combination of ink, acrylic paint and some pencil in points. It's made to imitate oil paintings. It's made to resemble Hieronymus Bosch and some of the paintings of the resurrection of Jesus, ironically. James wanted quite sort of hellish hellscape, people running away and fire and buildings burning, and just sort of link it back to where we created the interview from Hell. I painted that as Manchester. So little elements like the trams and Arndale and Printworks, and it's all set in Piccadilly Gardens. Because we realised it was taking up too much time to paint all of the bodies individually, we scanned it in and added extra bodies and stuff, and fire and glows and all that stuff on Photoshop, which helped a lot. It's a massive painting. It was a lot of fun to make, albeit stressful, because painting corpses is not fun.
The thing I want to get across is both the juxtaposition in the story between like the hellish environment and the corporate environment. So I really wanted the design to mesh those two together. So I used things that are indicative of both office spaces and hell. And like the final design, I went for like a low angle shot just to get it that overpowering, menacing feel, and I think just the tail adds quite a lot to that.
Essentially they live in office space, so I thought, let's make this office space really grotesque, disgusting for the demons to work in. But then it was brought up that it would mess up the continuity having such a messy space, so painting and drawing everything at different angles would be a hassle. So I was told, clean everything up, and I argued for a good couple of months, shouldn't be clean, why are they working in a clean space? And then I came up with the idea to add a texture on top that still made everything look grungy. I would take pictures of Yankee carpets and scrunch up rank pieces of paper, and then I would add it on top. And in terms of other design ideas, when I was planning to make the office space grotesque originally, I planned to make like the furniture and the chairs made out of different things like bones. There were wheelie chairs at one point that had tongues at the back of them, but that was argued with because you'd have to animate the dribble and the tongues moving about, and then you'd probably have to take into account all the characters' backs would be wet and full of drool after they sat down on them.
I really found it really fun, especially when I'd sort of settled on the idea of it being about demons. I did 2 A3 pages, sat down for about 2 hours and drew a load of demon heads. There was like certain like adaptations made here and there. The main sort of character that went through the most changes, Leonard. There are some images that you could see in the production Bible where that was one that was really hard to nail down. Mr. Flipoff, he was bit harder. Same with Mr. Orc, trying to capture a face that somebody who really would make you feel uncomfortable. I don't even know if we still ended up getting that in the end. There's a page that you can see in the production Bible of just me clearly like wrestling with that sort of idea. I ended up using a ventriloquist dummy as the main sort of inspiration for that. I'm very good at doing gross characters and like ugly looking characters, but we had to have one that looked cute. It was nice that Rowena could bring that in, and her style and Harry's style, they did blend together well with everything. So I mean, it's kind of a fluke saying I directed that part of it. It was just lucky that that just came together really nicely.
Suckleberry's design was somewhat based off of animals. That tends to be my specialism when I'm drawing characters. So I incorporated like hamster cheeks that kind of resemble ball sacks, and then cat ears that kind of look like fluffy demon horns. So she's still kind of approachable and likeable, but she's also just terrifying and vicious in every way. She had to come across as approachable, and she had to sort of seem innocent and unassuming, but then that's when you see the real sort of depth and gore behind her.
Thank you, mister.
My favourite thing in animation is expressions and like character performance. So like when the opportunity came to draw up expression sheet for each of the characters, I opted to do so just because I could have a lot of fun with like the unique characters that are on display and like how they'll demote. But in doing so, I also found that it helped me to understand how the characters look and how they move and how they would look in certain situations, which helped me when it came to animating. I also decided which characters I like to draw and which I really, really don't.
I started out because I wasn't sure if I wanted to be producer, but it was like weekly schedules, weekly agendas of what we'd go through within the meetings, and then it turned into a like huge, so it was a 12-week schedule that I went through. We had the week by week one, and then I slowly condensed it down to day by day as we got into second semester. When it came to meetings, I think we decided it would be once a week, and then we went into, I'd make out a small list, like our agendas of what we do each meeting, and people would come in. I think that was good as a group. People would come in and say what they thought was good to talk about as well. And we went through contingency plan, and I got that set up for the group to like work out. But to be honest, when it came to animation, there's not much that could go wrong unless all the computers in the Adobe Suite crash. But yeah, so it was not like we were doing any outdoors activities at all.
One of the first things that we did in preparation for Manchester Animation Festival was putting together a pitch Bible. Pretty soon into the project we had quite a few concept images and development artwork that we thought we could just get into the form of like some sort of tangible document to hand to people at the festival.
Yeah, I think it contained character designs, character bios, environments, basically everything we had at that time.
Yeah. And contact info on the front and the back, so they definitely knew who was responsible.
It was supposed to look like a regular office folder, but when you look inside it's got stuff like blood splatters, it's got tea stains and coffee rings and all that kind of stuff, but it's also got the sort of hellish aspects like burnt pages and blood.
Cigarette books.
What?
Cigarette books.
Oh, cigarette.
Yeah, so I was trying to think. We can cut all that into.
And cigarette butts.
I wrote down psychological employee reviews of our 3 main characters. That was really fun, and actually I think informed rewrites of the script a little bit further down the line.
Yeah, I think overall math was a good way to like establish us as a group. It was our first like group outing.
Yeah,
So cute.
there was a northwest of us event at Gasworks Bar, which is just opposite where the math event was being held, and I think that kind of really. It was a bonding. Yeah, I think it was a nice bonding
The
experience.
night where me and Alice got quite drunk on Thursday and started pestering everyone.
Yeah, it was just a way to be able to talk to industry and actually have like a physical copy.
I mean, there was some studios that took home pitch Bibles with them round back
Line.
the line.
Lucy.
Kilogram looked up through our stuff as well.
A lot of the studios that we wanted to sort of put ourselves on the radar of did that through that remembered our project. So even though we had a pipeline set out and we knew exactly like how certain scenes were going to be animated, there was also kind of a roll of the dice where we didn't know what it was going to look like until we just did it. So we really had to push on certain animatic critiques for visual gags that perhaps weren't done any justice by just, you know, still images and sound. We knew that like the performance was really going to be the thing that brought those scenes to life. Good examples of that would have been like Mr. Orc scene.
A lot of that comedy I think comes from the performance of the character rather than, you know, the concept.
Yeah.
So like people, there was a criticism that was brought quite often that they didn't like that scene.
Yeah.
So which is why I reboarded it with more, you know, movement to Zaid's recording, like syncing it to that.
Make you like it.
That's the good stuff! That's hitting the
I argue that even some of the stuff to do with Mr. Scrot, where he gets blasted with a hose, it worked on the animatic, but I could say having animated that now, it works a lot better, getting to see all those little movements.
My pubes! My precious pubes!
The scenes that I really had a good idea of how I wanted it to be portrayed, how I wanted the character to come across, I opted to do, and I think I've been successful in that manner. But there's also been times when people have like posted shots of their own that they're working on, and I just have a little like idea of how I'll make the character move and everything. But yeah, I think it's really nice that I can do that and everything.
I think audio post was good because I actually got to learn to do the mixing desk, so that was quite like a new skill I didn't think I'd ever need to learn.
Evil's not hard to find. Where all the torturer? Where all the murderer?
That was really good.
I don't know really what makes up the innards of a rat. We've got some nice booth salad here, scattered with, are they sour cream and salted pretzels? Okay, that's good. That's a bit nicer on the palate.
But yeah, so we went through that. James was more like, took a lot more control when it came to that and like directed everyone. I was just there to make sure we'd got it at the end of the day.
When it came to directing people in the audio post room, we were all definitely out of our depth there. None of us were sound technicians. It's just like, it was really fun getting to direct the voice actors there, and sort of, I was definitely picky.
Well, I must say, it takes some guts to come in here and do that.
I was like getting very, very particular about a certain way some things should be said.
Let's listen to it back.
Well, I must say, it takes some guts to come in here and do that.
Yeah, I like that. It's like Zayd would do something and it'd be like, we'd be like, yeah, and then James would be like, one more time.
Yeah.
Just one thing. Yeah.
There's just, I think the that just delivers weirdly. You know, it kind of goes like that. I don't know. That's just like, do it exactly the same again.
But how do you want that to come out?
It takes some
Do
guts to
that.
come in here and do that.
Yes.
That?
That.
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 That. Yes?
That.
That. Is that a word?
That is the one.
But that was like an experience where I learned that sometimes it's not about people pleasing, it's about getting the best out of people that you know they can. That especially came with like the voice actors. When it came to like Zayd, he was definitely the one who had the most lines to record. We went through like plenty of times where he was repeating the same line over and over again, and I just knew that he could push it just that little bit further. Weirdly enough, orgasmic joy came very naturally to Zayd, so yeah, there was no direction needed for that one. Nice work, mate.
And I went through, I think this is where organisation came in pretty well, because I'd like noted out every individual thing that we'd decided on, so when it came to it, it was all numbered and ready to go, so that worked pretty well.
So I knew of Sydney and Zayd previously, and it just happened by chance in a way.
You sent over some radio plays, didn't you?
Yeah, Sydney is a music and sound student at the uni. I was originally talking to her for the hopes that she could help us with some sound design and mixing and all that sort of post type stuff, but she was talking to me about one of her most recent radio plays. The one night that I happened to meet up with Zayd for the first time in years, and we just sort of started talking about this project, more than happy to get on board with it. That was just absolute fluke, but so glad that he was down for it, because he's really provided a really good voice for Leonard.
Now we can cut to our initial hearing of Zayd's impressions of some of our characters.
Blah, 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 blah. Just send in the fresh meat. I want to be done by 8:15. I fucked that up.
Brilliant stuff. I composed some of the music for just a rough composition of some music that we put in the animatic. And we ended up using it as well as an adaptation from a guy called Tom Farron, who like is in a heavy metal band. He did an excellent cover. Something that I'd written, and that was mad. So yeah, thanks to you, Tom. Cheers.
Every Friday, we were critiqued on our animatic for a good month. It was a very grueling process of tweaking the animatic. We didn't know how wrong it was at that point.
Yeah. I mean, that wasn't even a first draft though. I'd already gone through our level of fixings.
The story has pretty much changed about like 22 times at this point, maybe more than that.
I hated Fridays.
Well, I thrived off Fridays, but I was very surprised that I found myself agreeing with every single criticism each week, which I normally didn't find myself doing.
Yeah. Well, any in particular?
I'd say timing of the jokes in the animatic, some dragged on for quite a while. Some jokes just didn't work at all.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting there was a few deleted scenes actually. One that comes to mind, I think Harry might be talking about there, was the maintenance scene with the toilet.
I hated the maintenance.
Yeah. So I mean, Leah, you boarded that, didn't you?
Yeah, no, I just thought the death at the beginning of the caretaker, I thought it could have some, mention later just to give it more point.
Finding these people.
Oh, heck.
Maintenance, can you send a caretaker up here? ASAP.
He died this morning. You have to clean up yourself.
Really? Really? That's the third one this month! Olmec, stop killing caretakers!
It didn't really contribute to the overall narrative at all, so it was just best left.
I was going to say the caretaker, he got enough closure from the elevators, he didn't need the maintenance.
Quite literally.
Yeah.
Another criticism that was brought up was that the tone wasn't consistent throughout, and in the middle there's a bit of a lull. So we
I
just
agree with
Yeah.
So we just wanted to end each of the interviewers, you know, like with some violence or something that just goes with the overall tone.
It builds a pattern of expectation as well.
But we didn't really want anything too bad because we didn't want to take away from the ending and the big reveal, because otherwise it just wouldn't feel any different to what we've already witnessed.
I think one of the best changes we made personally was when Olmec saw Suckleberry's CV, he fainted in the first draft. If anything, he would take great pleasure out of it, so I think changing that and giving him a smile at the end to contrast from how he's been through the previous 6 minutes of the animation.
He was all over the place at first.
He's a big independent red boy.
Yeah.
I know in the pre-production stage I wanted to do an animation test. It wasn't under the pipeline that we ended up going with, as it wasn't industry standard and it wasn't something that we could all easily get on board with as animators.
Oh, even not hard to find.
But this is just more to get how the characters look and everything, and I was proud of the animation, and I'm actually using that original file as a base for the frame by frame in the final piece.
Animating was always something on the back of my mind. I knew that the program we had to use was one that we'd been recommended towards us, which was Toon Boom, because that was the one that had been peddled by the tutors, that was like their industry standard software. Well, there had to be like an element of a challenge to this, I think, for us to all really be pushed to like the best we could be. It was scary and it was quite daunting, but I think having a combination of rigged and frame by frame scenes was like, it made our ambitious length of about 6 minutes more realistic. There was one point where I remember saying at Manchester Animation Festival to a few people that we wanted to do it all frame by frame, and they were just like, you know, you're dreaming.
When it came to rigging, I'd had a bit of experience in it before, so it wasn't that hard for me to get into. I think the only thing I was struggling with was the drawing part of it, so layers and stuff like that. So that's when the group came in handy, because we all like worked together to get that done for me and obviously for the animation. But yeah, and then I was able to just, so I think I did 21 rigs overall, to get them sent out to everyone. But I think that was a good thing for me, because it, as well as producing, it would be nice to actually still work in animation. So working on rigs really like set me for being producer and rigger. And then I knew that I could actually animate the rigs for the final animation section.
In terms of the frame by frame stuff, I find it really easy to use. It's just, I've never really used a program dedicated towards animation before, so it's nice to get the chance to do that rather than just using a program that has a secondary function as animation. And it really goes to show how like easy it is to use, I find. The rig stuff is still a bit hazy to me. I'm getting the hang of it slowly, but I'm definitely more leaning towards frame by frame.
Some of the scenes I found it easier to do it part rigged, part frame by frame. I'm quite a fan of combination animation anyway, so I find that stuff interesting. But it was a little bit of pressure to try and make sure that the two combined well, because of the rigged animation is just so fluid, and frame by frame has a lot of room and margin for error because it's hand drawn. It was just a bit of pressure, but it looks good in the end. It means that we have capabilities that expand from beyond just the rig, and we can give the characters more sort of performance.
I'd say when it came to second semester, I think I took a big step back. I mean, I got our shot lists together. I think that's my biggest thing this semester, was shot lists, making sure the timings were there and everything, and making sure everyone had an individual, so you guys knew what to do. It was just I think my job role this semester was just to make life a bit easier for you guys.
This has been my first time doing it properly, on quite a big scale, including myself, 5 lead animators and 3 assistant animators. When I realised at the end of that, it was like, oh, actually there's like sort of 8 people under like the helm of this. There was a bit of pressure there, but I can happily say no one's been a letdown. You know, directing the lead animators, that you know people's potential, and you know that you see or hear something in your head, that they definitely can do. So it was fun, like motivating them, or even just giving them notes. It might not even be motivation, just giving them the notes that they need to realise like what they can actually do.
After having a crash course from one of our tutors, we discovered that post-production is a long-ass process. We also discovered that there's some issues potentially with the colour signature that we've been using. The colours on a Mac are more saturated than a PC, so that's an issue when it comes to combining the characters, which were mostly done on a Mac, to the backgrounds that were done on a PC. They look a bit washed out. Thank God that Toon Boom is RGB only, because it means that we can just go back into the colour libraries for each character and change them on a colour graded monitor. When it comes to post, there's quite a long pipeline where we have to export each character from Toon Boom as an image sequence and the corresponding props that they interact with, and then put them into After Effects, and then do all of the various layers, put in the effects animation, the backgrounds, any other props, and the characters, and then export that into Premiere, where we can then do colour correction. Luckily for us though, Harry has designed these backgrounds at about 5K resolution, so that means that we can export this project both in 2K and 4K, so that means that it can be exported for the future and it can remain even long after it is completed.
Yeah, it was going to be part of post-production doing the SFX and trying to add them into After Effects, but thank goodness that Al came along and offered his help, because I feel like it would have looked really out of place.
Yeah.
I mean, these proper like After Effects glowy type things, it just looks more organic if it's more cartoon.
First applicant, please.
Wow.
Wasn't that great? Thanks, Al. There hasn't been like a massive clash of personalities ever. We were good at squashing out any sort of like building resentment. There was no mountains made out of any molehills.
I think my time as producer has been like really good. It's given me a lot more confidence to work in the group, and I feel like I've got a lot more confidence in myself.
I've never really had like many original characters to work from, so having, you know, access to these characters from, you know, an original story was something I really enjoyed.
I absolutely despise doing backgrounds, but I draw backgrounds a lot more often than I should now. I've got myself into a good habit of that.
You've got to put like your own show reel and your own work ahead of just pleasing people. I think I finally learned that. I was such a toxic people pleaser. It's like this project has finally taught me to stop trying to put other people in front of.
But like I'm just like really grateful that like I was given the opportunity to do this, and that people had faith in me there for that.
Before this project, I liked people, and after this project, I like people less. That's a joke.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say. It's something that's really important to all of us. Like, not just as this was like one of my ideas that was important to me, it was important that a group of talented animators that were on my course with me, that all chose to be on a team with me, had something worth putting out at the end of their university experience and the start of the rest of their lives, essentially. That's kind of like, yeah, cheers and thanks for that. It's been great.